Alright, Shalom. Once again, all praise is honor and glory unto the Most High. Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai Ba'asham Rakakwadash, double honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone, and salutations to all you sincere camp. And this is your brother Abawan back again with another video through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai Ba'asham Rakakwadash. All praises and glory is due, especially in the times that we're in. Hey, call Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai Ba'asham Rakakwadash. But yeah, anyway, I just the spirit just jumped on me to say that because it's great to you to even do these videos, right? It's through the spirit and power of the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahweh. All praise to the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahweh. And it's a privilege to even be able to do these videos, to have this truth and this knowledge. But that's going into the video anyway, right? This is a video of the Canaanite mythology behind Isaiah the 14th chapter, right? The Canaanite mythology behind Isaiah the 14th chapter, and it's basically going into the quote unquote Canaanite myth that invented Lucifer, right? So basically, we already know in this truth that Lucifer is not a real angel or a real demon or nothing like that, okay? Because no angel fell from heaven. The idea of fallen angels, the idea of Satan being a fallen angel and Satan being referring to Lucifer is a false doctrine that was invented by the Catholic Church. And even this guy, he goes into it in this video. Now, of course, he goes off in the beginning part of the video, which is why you have the video titled The Canaanite Mythology Behind Isaiah 14, because there is this ideology, right? There is this belief that is going around with the unbelievers, those that do not believe in the scriptures, that basically the whole of the scriptures, right, is based off different mythologies and stories from all the different heathen that were around about our people, right, when we were in the Holy Land. So the idea is that the Most High is derived from, El, right? The whole Israel thing, Isis, Ra, and El. So basically, Egyptian mythology, a little bit of Egyptian mythology here, a little bit of Canaanite mythology here, and other different groups. Because if you remember, because you have to understand, the Canaanites are not a single group of people, all right? The Canaanites were different kingdoms that were all just referred to as Canaanites because they were all Hamites. You had your Amorites, your Perizzites, your Hivites, your Girgasites, and so on and so forth, right? Even Moab and Ammon sometimes are even lumped into the Canaanite category, right? Not by the scriptures, by the way, but just by the people of this world, by your secular historians. Even the Moabites and Ammonites are all lumped into the Canaanite category because, if you go into your secular history, they believe that the Moabites and Canaanites are just Arabs, right? Middle Eastern groups of people. They don't know that Moab and Ammon are basically the Chinese and the Japanese, right? Going into the history, because what they believe is that the Chinese and the Japanese are just a group of Japhites, that basically broke off after the flood. But yeah, that's just showing you that the spirit is not dealing with plantation Christianity or really anybody that exists in this theological seminary space, right? But yeah, like I was saying, these unbelievers, they believe that the scriptures and basically the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahweh, right? The God of the Hebrew Israelites is derived from ancient Canaanite origins, right? Because these the ancient Israelites are basically an offshoot of the different Canaanite tribes that existed at that time. So because they broke off from those Canaanite tribes, they adopted some of the doctrines and so on and so forth of the Canaanite tribes. That's basically how some of these unbelievers think, right? Because the idea is that well, the word for God in the Bible, right, is El, which of course it's not. The word for God in the Bible is Allah, okay, Allah. But because the small hearts, which they believe are the descendants of the Israelites, which are once again showing you how much knowledge they have, right? But because they pronounce that word, the word for the Most High, Allah, as El, right? They now believe that well, the God that you worship is based off this God right here. And let me show you a picture. Let me show you a picture, right? This, yeah, this is exactly what I was thinking about. Of course, it's smaller now, but yeah, this is exactly what I was thinking about. This is the God, right? El, which is basically the Canaanite god, right? The head god of the Canaanite pantheon. So your Baal, your Nabu, right? Your Molech, they are all under this El. So El is a multifaceted term depending on the context. Most commonly recognized as a singular masculine definite article in Spanish, meaning the, a Northwest Semitic word for God or deity, right? Or a slang for an elevated elway. Okay, so basically the one that we're looking for is, of course, the Northwest Semitic word for God or deity, because anywhere you see God in the Hebrew, right, the small hearts will translate it as El rather than Allah, because they don't know how the Paleo Hebrew works, right? They think that, oh, that is a vowel point in the Paleo Hebrew, but there is no the only vowels in the Paleo Hebrew are the R and the I, right? The R of course being the the R of course being the I don't know, just the R and the I, right? Those are the only two real vowel pronunciations in the Hebrew. There is no E in the ancient Hebrew, right? There is no I, no O, no U. So the word for God, let's go to that. Let's go to that real quick. That should be in the book right here. So I think it's not you have to go to the book of like Genesis 2, okay? Because I believe it goes Elohim. Because if you go to the book of, if you start in the book of Genesis, you have Elohim. That's what you'll see there. So let's try a little bit farther away. So yeah, this is what I'm looking for. Okay, let's use this one. Genesis 6 verse 5. So basically look at the blue letter. Let's see if the word here is okay. The word here is Yahweh, right? Yahweh. That's why the God is in full caps. So the word here is Yahweh, not Yehovah. So you see that the word God is interchangeable in the Bible. Sometimes it is Allahayam, right, which is basically a pronoun. No, not pronoun. I forgot what the word is, right? A noun that is referred to as multiple, right? For multiple people, right? Basically it's a Alahayam is basically a word for multiple, right? So powers, basically, because that's what the word Allah means, power, right? But the idea is Yahweh, which is the true name of the Heavenly Father, the Most High. But of course, it's translated as Jehovah because once again, once again, it's the small house, and basically your plantation Christians and your theologists and your cemetery seminarians or whatever that are translating these words. So they're not giving you the proper translations, right? That's why you get vowels that don't exist in the Hebrew in these words. So the true name is Yahweh, right? So name of the Most High, right? God is, it should be Allahayam, right? So the word that you see here is Elohim, right? But of course they shortened that to L. So this is it right here. Strong's H430 Elohim, which of course is Allahayam, because once again there is no E, no I, no O or U in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, right? The only vowel points that we have are the R and the I, okay? So you can see that the word here, if you actually look at, if you actually know your Assyrian script, because that's what this is the Assyrian script of Hebrew. Then you know that the word here is the A, the La, the Ha, the Ya, and the Ma, which basically is translates to Allahayam, okay? Allahayam. So that's your A, that's your La, that's your Ya, that's your A, that's your La, that's your Ha, that's your Ya, and that's your Ma, okay? So basically, what I just gave you are five letters in the Hebrew, okay? A, La, Ma, Ya. So it's like a La, Ha, Ya, Ma, okay? If you right, so that's anyway, that's his Assyrian script. So the actual word is Allahayam, right? Not Elohim, because those, like I said, that vowel does not exist. So Allahayam is a I'm forgetting that what that word is. The word for multiple, right? When you're referring to multiple people, that you add s to it, right? Peoples, groups, right? That's basically what the the prefix yam in the Hebrew represents. So the actual word is Allah, but you now see Allahayam, right? That's the powers, okay? So it's in a plural. That's what I was looking for. Plural. Thank you. Now I remember it. Hey, that's a spirit right there. So in a plural sense, that's when you get the term Allahayam, right? Of course, you'll say Elohim. So the actual word is Al, okay, which they translate as L, and L becomes an L according to the secular, right, your historians, right, your unbelievers and your secular historians, that El goes back to the Canaanite god for Almighty, or the Canaanite god, which represents the Almighty, the Almighty, the number one god in the Canaanite pantheon. So, ancient Near East, El or Al is a generic Semitic word for god or deity, right? Because the Canaanites also also spoke Hebrew as well, right? So they also called their supreme god El, right, or basically Allah, right, in the Hebrew. The same way the Canaanites called Molech. The word for Molech in the Hebrew is supposed to be Malak, which is king, right? Nabu, which is basically a prophet or speaker, right? Baal, which also is another way of saying Lord. So these are all words that go back to the Hebrew, right? Because the Canaanites also speak Hebrew, so they refer to their gods by Hebrew names. That's why the confusion exists. But you see, the unbelievers, the spirit is not dealing with them, so they can't even understand that simple fact, right? So now, in the Hebrew Bible, it is often used as a name or title for God and appears in the compound names like El Shaddai, which is God Almighty. It's actually Al Shadia, right? Al Shadia, or God Most High. So let me get that in the Hebrew. That should be Exodus the 6th chapter, right? Al Shadia, Exodus 6. Okay, so yeah, this is right here. Exodus 6 verse 3. And I appeared unto Abraham and unto Isaac and unto Jacob by the name of God Almighty, but by my name Yahweh was I not known unto them. So the word here will be Al Shadia, right? Al Shaddai, of course, the letter will pronounce it El Shaddai, right? So that you see it right here, El Shaddai, and that's the Shaddai. Because if you go into this word right now, if you look at the Assyrian script once again, that's the Shah, that's the Da, and that's the Ya. Okay, so El Shad, so it's actually Al Ashadia, right? Because Al Ashadia. So that's the Sha, the Da, and the Ya. Al Ashadia, because it's a compound word. God Almighty, right? So the word here is not El. So you see that they used the word El here, but the word here is not El. It's Al, because that's the A and that's the La. Now let's do this real quick. Right? Let's do this real quick just to show you what I'm talking about. So we'll get the Hebrew alphabet, right? Just to show you that these and basically they call the Hebrew alphabet the Aleph bet, right? Aleph bet, right? But this is the Hebrew alphabet, yes, here, right? So this is right here. So come on, man. I hate this shit, man. It's lucky about that, but this, because I flip this screen around now, it's not showing me. Let me try and see if I can do desktop mode. I actually have the speed. Let's try desktop mode and see if it will show it properly. Right, so let's try desktop mode and see if it will show it properly. And of course it doesn't. When you have to bear with me, I'm probably going to have to just download it or find a way to open it properly. Why is it not showing open image in new tab? Come on. Open image in new tab. And okay, here it is. Open image in new tab. Let me try and see if I can get it. Here we go. That's what I'm talking about. So this is the alphabet, right? So the word here is, so you see that the first word in the alphabet, that's the A, Ba, Ga, Da, Ha, Wa, Za, Ha, Ta, Ya, Ka, La, Ma, Na, Sha, I, Pa, Taza, Kwa, Ra, Pa, Sha, Tha. Okay? And that's basically how you pronounce. Hold on. It's supposed to be another Ta. But it's only Taza that is here. Okay, that is the Ta, right? So that's basically the Hebrew alphabet, and this is in the Assyrian script, right? So the first letter is Aleph, okay, Aleph, right? So that's the A, because that's the A sound in the Hebrew. The same way that when you go into the Greek alphabet, you also have the A sound. You go into the Latin, you also have the A sound in the beginning. So then now explain to me why the hell, right? You see the exact same symbol, right? But the word they now use is E. Or you know, this is what you're supposed to be. That's the R, right? This is the exact same symbol, okay, that you see right here. The exact same symbol that represents the R, the A sound. It even looks like a damn A, okay? It looks like a damn A as well. If you actually, if you look at it properly, it looks like a damn A. If you look at the ancient script, right? The actual biblical Hebrew script, they call it Phoenician Hebrew. Once again, showing you that the the Canaanites and the Canaanites also spoke Hebrew because all Phoenician means is Canaanites in Greek or Latin, I believe. Right? If you look at the Phoenician script for the R, the word that you see there once again is, and I'm slacking. I'm sidetracking. Let me get back on topic. Let me get back on topic. This will probably be a separate video, right? Let me get back on topic. Let me get back on topic. No. I got time today. Let's do this. I got time today. Right? Let's do this. The Hebrew alphabets, and we'll use Phoenician, which is Canaanites, which is Canaanites, the word for Canaanite, right? And of course, they'll say that it's Phoenician script, but it's just Old Testament Hebrew script because it's actual Hebrew. It's the same Hebrew that our forefathers used, okay? Not Phoenician script. So you see it right here. Let's open this again, and we'll open a new tab, right? Just to show what I'm talking about. So when you go and look at the word A, you see that the Aleph, once again, it looks like A that is sideways, right? It looks like an A that is sideways because you look at the capital letter of A, that's basically the Aleph. So this is the R sound, the A sound. So explain once again why the A sound now becomes E when it turns to the name of the Most High. And that's how you know that these small hearts aren't really speaking or using the true Hebrew, man, because they basically changed the pronunciation of these words. There is no E in the Hebrew, right? The word there is Allah, right? Really it's Allah. Right? The word there is Allah, really it's Allah, right? But of course they've changed it to now be L, and the L now goes back to this Canaanite God here, which is why once again, right, you have a lot of these unbelievers that believe that those that don't believe in this truth or the scriptures, that believe that, oh, well, the God of the Bible is based off a Canaanite God, and that the Hebrew Israelites, right, and they are writing their religion is basically based off different myths and stories from all the different groups of people that were around them, right? Oh, the Ten Commandments is based off the negative confessions or the Hammurabi Code, which is of course going off complete bullshit, right? Because all that, right? Because well, first and foremost, right, as is written, the gods of the nations. Let's get that precept real quick. Right? The gods of the nations are idols. Let's get that. Idols. That should be Psalms 96, verse 4, I believe. Here it is, Psalm 96, verse 5. For all the gods of the nations are idols, but Yahweh made the heavens. Right? So it's not that all these idol religions like the Egyptian religion and the Canaanite religion and so on and so forth, they got their own beliefs from basically twisting the scriptures, right? Because once again, the spirit is not dealing with them, which is why you see that even in this truth, whenever a man bugs out, what does he go and do? He goes and starts pushing out new doctrines, starts calling upon new names. That's why you have all kinds of different names for the Most High, even in this truth, right? And it happened the same way with the heathen as well, okay? Because there was a time, right, back going all the way back to Noah. Noah taught all his sons in the way of the Most High, Yahweh, Yahweh, but only Shem followed in that way. That is the reason why, if you go back to the story of Genesis, right, when Abraham went to Egypt with his wife Sarah, when he believed that, oh, they would kill him and take his wife because he believed that the Egyptians at that time, they were a godless people. But what did the king of Egypt say? They said that they believed in the Most High, man. The reason why they believed in the Most High was because, Noah gave all his sons that knowledge, and all his sons passed down that knowledge to their children. So they knew about the Most High. The nations all knew about the Most High after the flood and worshipped the Most High to an extent up until basically the Spirit left the nations, right? I won't really say the Spirit left the nations, but that understanding left the nations because, once again, the Spirit is not dealing with the heathen, so it was never even on them. But that understanding left the heathen, and they began to follow after other gods and create other gods, right? Because the Spirit is not dealing with them, the Most High is not dealing with them, right? That's how it actually happens. Not that the Israelites now created gods based off the idol gods that don't even exist of the other nations, right? So basically, that's the ideology that you see for the first half of this video, really for the first 2/3 of this video, right? That is basically using that ideology of, oh well, the ancient Israelites based their religion off other mythologies and other stories rather than as the scriptures say. Let's get that that's all scripture. Let's get that. This is basically disproves all that nonsense right here. Let's see. Let's find that. Yeah, it is 2 Timothy 3 verse 16. All scripture is given by inspiration of the Most High, Yahweh Sham Yahushai, and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of the Most High God may be perfect and thoroughly furnished unto all good works. Right? So the scriptures don't come from a Canaanite mythology, right? But rather from divine inspiration from the Most High. So there is no Canaanite myth that invented Lucifer, but rather the true inspiration from the Most High, Yahweh Sham Yahushai, was taken by men that the Spirit was not dealing with and translated into Lucifer, because they did not have that understanding. I've already given the breakdown multiple times, right? The book of Isaiah 14 is referring to this kingdom that we're currently in right now, this modern day Babylon, and basically how the saints of the Most High will rejoice when Babylon falls. So what I'm going to do right now is I haven't even yet played the video, but I just want to get this first in the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter. So this is the book of Isaiah 14 verse 1. For Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land, and the stranger shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. Right? And it's funny how nobody ever reads that part when it comes to Isaiah 14 chapter, right? That clearly the Most High Yahweh Sham Yahushai has said that he is only dealing with the nation of Israel, which is why he will have mercy on Jacob and will choose Israel, right? Which is basically going into the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, the 12 tribes that are scattered abroad, right? So now, Isaiah 14 verse 2, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Yahweh for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressor. So when you see the Hebrew Israelites, right, because they're not the black Hebrew Israelites, we are the Hebrew Israelites, on the highways and byways telling you that Esau Edom is going into slavery, the so-called white man is going into slavery, the Most High is going to destroy the so-called white man Esau Edom, right? And I'm standing up for this one because it's, just to show you what I'm talking about, right? That is in the scriptures. We just read it right here, right now in the scriptures, okay? Isaiah 14. But of course, the plantation Christians ignore that part. But yeah, Isaiah 14 verse 3. And it shall come to pass in the day that Yahweh shall give you the rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from thy hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve. Thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. Yahweh hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. Right? So basically, the king of Babylon here represents, this modern day Babylon. Okay, he's not speaking about ancient Babylon, right? Nebuchadnezzar, the new Babylonian Empire. No, he's speaking about modern day Babylon. And how do we know that he's speaking about the modern day Babylon, right? Because it's basically going into the whole earth, right? Let's get that. Now, Isaiah 14 verse 7, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing, right? Because at that time, okay, the new Babylonian Empire, that's what they call it in the world, right? But the Babylonian Empire that was controlled by Nebuchadnezzar and his descendants was not ruling over the whole earth, okay? But yeah, let's get to the main point. So now this is the main point right here. So that should be, here's the main point right here. Isaiah 14 verse 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregations in the sides of the north. Right. And this is once again how you know that this is speaking about modern day Babylon the Great with Esau Edom. he will ascend into heaven, whose habitation is the clouds, right? Esau, Edom. This is because they are the only group of people that are basically have the aspiration to be as the Most High, right? To ascend into heaven, to go in the basically to sit on the throne of the Heavenly Father, right? This man of sin that showed himself to be the Most High in the temple of the Most High, okay? So yeah, this is basically going into Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. And let's keep going now, and we'll see that this is of course speaking about Esau, Edom, right? So let's see, where is it, right? This should be somewhere around here. Hold on, let me look for it. So this is right here. Now let's continue reading. Now this is the book of Isaiah 14, verse 15. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? Right, and look at the word that is used there. Not the angel, not the messenger, not the guy, not the demon, not the devil. Is this the man? Because this is of course referring to a man, and it was understood that this was speaking about a man, right, in the ancient world, up until it became retranslated by, I believe it was not Saint Augustine but somebody else. Now I've forgotten the exact person. That was, it was Saint Augustine. He began to translate it to become Lucifer, right? The devil that fell down from heaven, or whatever he believed in, right? So let me play the video real quick just to get to the main point, because I've rambled on for so long. But it's a lot of background knowledge down ads. Yeah, but a lot of background knowledge has to be given, for you to actually understand this preset and understand exactly what's going on right now and what's actually reading, or like not what we're reading, but what we're watching right now. So let's play the video.
Greek-speaking Jews who translated Isaiah, different son of Eon.
And this is actually good right here. This is actually what inspired me to do this video, right? Let's listen to what he says in this part.
Then the Python previously mentioned, but ancient Greek myths sometimes conflated the two characters. This shows that the ancient Greek-speaking Jews who translated Isaiah still recognized Hillel as an astro.
So listen to that, the ancient Greek-speaking Jews, okay? And that's the ancient Greek-speaking Jews. So even this guy understood about the Hellenos, right? The Hellenistic Israelites, basically the Jakes that were scattered in, basically Israelites that knew that they were Israelites, right? But were scattered into the Greek captivity, right? That's basically what the Greek-speaking Jews are. The Hellenos, the Hellenistas, and that's who the New Testament refers to as the Gentiles, right? When the scriptures talk about the Gentiles that will be saved, the Gentiles that are grafted in, the Gentiles that can come into this truth, is speaking about those Hellenistic Gentiles, Hellenistic Israelites, the Israelites that are scattered into the other nations that speak and even speak the language of the other nations, that may have the appearance of the other nations, but their bloodline, their nationality goes back to the nation of Israel. Okay, so yeah, the Greek-speaking Jews that basically translated the scriptures from the Hebrew to the Greek, which is basically the Septuagint, right? But of course, he now goes off and says that, oh, well, the Greek-speaking Jews that were translating the scriptures are mixing up, Lucifer, son of the morning, basically, which basically, if you go into the Hebrew, right, the word there is halal, halal, which basically means the morning star, right? Morning star. That's basically what it means, morning star, because it's basically Lucifer, son of the morning, right? It's basically going to the morning star, right? So it's not even an actual like name or a title for Satan or anything like that. It's just a regular term that is used, right? That's why you can also use the term Lucifer for Lord Yahweh, because he is also a morning star. Yahweh is saying here in Nigeria, right, the bright and morning star, which is basically how they refer to JC, right? But of course, that's going into Allah Yahweh, right? The morning star. So yeah, that's just a little bit of a snippet from his video that basically shows you that, okay, the scattering of our people, even going back all the way to the Greek captivity, and that this was an actual thing. But let's keep playing the video. not something that the Hebrew Israelites made up. The Hellenistic Israelites were an actual thing. The Greek-speaking Jews were an actual thing, right? So let's keep playing the video.
Being related to Venus. In the Latin Vulgate, Hallel became Lucifer qui mane oriebaris, Venus who used to rise early in the morning, since Lucifer was the name of Venus, the morning star, in Latin. Church fathers as early as St. Augustine, however, reinterpreted Isaiah 14 to be about the primordial fall of Satan, which became a topic of much speculation in...
Like I said, St. Augustine, so he was the one that actually changed the translation, right, and the understanding of what Lucifer actually was. Or I should say that what the actual Isaiah 14 was going into, which is basically, Esau, Edom at this time. Isaiah 14 was his current day prophecy right now. But at the time, Isaiah 14 was a future prophecy, speaking about the modern, revised Babylonian and Roman Empire that we're currently in right now. But you had these market Christians like St. Augustine, right, that basically changed it from that understanding, right, the devil, of course, being the so-called white man Esau, Edom, and changed it to, basically Satan, the fallen angel, and then you now have the Christian, the Catholic, sorry, not the Christian, but the Catholics now changing it and making this fable of Lucifer being a chief angel in heaven and then fall. That's why you don't see anything like that in the scriptures. You can read the scriptures. You read the scriptures from left to right, up to down. You will never hear a story about an angel that fell from heaven, or that Lucifer was the chief choir master. Those are just Catholic fables, man. Endless genealogies that the scriptures warns you about. So that's basically all I really wanted to get from this video, right? There's this point right here that you brought up. Let's go back to that.
Church fathers as early as St. Augustine, however, reinterpreted Isaiah 14 to be about the primordial fall of Satan, which became a topic of much speculation in medieval Christianity. In the process, the original context and meaning of the passage was entirely forgotten, and Lucifer ultimately became a synonym for the devil.
Right, so I've already given the context, the actual context, not whatever this guy was going into, because you actually watch what the guy was going into. He's basically trying to say that, the context is actually referring to all these different mythologies, right? He went into the Canaanite mythology. When we were watching the video, he went into the Greek mythology about how Venus, right, which is basically Venus was not the planet Venus, so the goddess Venus, which I believe was a Roman goddess or something like that. I forgot what it actually was. Like, Roman goddess of the dawn. Yes, I think that's what it was. Venus. Let's not waste any time with that. Yeah, Venus. So this is right here. Venus is the celebrated Roman goddess of love, beauty, sex, fertility, and victory. Originally an ancient Italian deity of garden and nature, she was later equated with the Greek goddess Aphrodite as the mother of the Trojan hero Aeneas. She was revered as the divine ancestor of the Roman people, right? So that's basically what he is going into, right? The Venus, which also going into the planet is Venus as well, which according to him is a very bright star in the night sky, which I don't really know all about that. But yeah, let's go to this. So I asked the chat about it because I wanted to confirm about that. So what it was saying about St. Augustine, right? So this is right here. So yeah, I asked the chat, did St. Augustine translate Isaiah 14 as Lucifer? Right, so whether I was the one that actually did the translation and made or changed up the actual understanding of Isaiah 14, and the AI replied, no, Saint Jerome translated Isaiah 14 as Lucifer. However, Saint Augustine played a major role in popularizing the idea that this passage applied to the devil, and of course it does, right? But when we speak about the devil, we are speaking about Esau, Edom, the so-called red man, right? The devil, which the Bible speaks of, which is of course Esau, Edom, the so-called red man, right? Metaphor applied to a man who are playing the part of who plays the part of Lucifer, or sorry, not Lucifer, Satan. That's the slip of the tongue right there. Satan is holding my mouth, right? Plays the part of Satan or chooses to side with him. That's basically what the quote-unquote devil actually is going into. Right, so the translation. Hold on. Yeah, the original Hebrew text for Isaiah 14 verse 12 says Haile. Now wow, all these different pronunciations for the same word, and the word there is halal once again, which basically means shining one or morning star, right? So let's go back to that. Let's go into that. The word there is Lucifer, right? Isaiah 14 verse 2. Let's see the actual word. The word there should be halal, because once again, you've already established, right? There is no E-I-O-U sound in the Hebrew. So the word there is not halal or halal or halal. It's halal. Let's get that. So this is right here, right here. It's like it's hayalal. I know Sha, because the word halal is a completely different word, right? It's praises, halal up is praises, right? In the Hebrew, the word here is hayalal. That's the ha, the ya, the la, and the la, right? Or it could even be this word right here. Anyway, this is the root word, right? So on the strong, and the word here is halal, which means to shine, right? To praise. It basically is praise. That's why you say kal halal, all praises. So the word here is hayalal. Lucifer, light bearer, shining one, morning star, Lucifer, of the king of Babylon and Satan. Hallel describing the king of Babylon, which of course once again is not describing Nebuchadnezzar or any of his descendants, right? But rather the modern day Babylon, which is of course Esau, Edom, the so-called red man, right? Because we have already interpreted and we've already given the breakdown that modern day Babylon is America. So let's go back to this. So the word there, you see that the word there is halal or hayalal. So yeah, going into it, right, say this translates to shining one or morning star. It was a poetic title for the planet Venus. Okay, so once again, going into Venus, because like I said, it's a bright star in the sky. So around 400 AD, Jerome translated the Bible into Latin. This translation is called the Latin Vulgate. Jerome translated the Hebrew word halal into the Latin word for Lucifer, which means light bearer in Latin. Lucifer was simply the standard word for the morning star, not a name for the devil, right? Because the term Lucifer is a title, it's just is in the Latin. The Latin word there it means morning star, it means light bearer, right? Basically, because basically, Isaiah was referring to Esau in this time, right, as basically a Lucifer on the left hand side, because that's exactly what Esau is trying to be, right? No marvel, because the devil disguised himself as an angel of the light. So Lucifer was trying to be as the Most High, right, as Lord Yahushai, right, the light bearer on the left hand side. So that's what Isaiah was referring to, that they are basically a light bearer on the left hand side, which is of course, as you should already know, right, that there is no such thing as a light bearer on the left hand side. It's basically darkness. That's why the scriptures say that, that in the day at the return of our Lord Yahushua, the sun shall be darkened and the moon shall no longer give her light. And that's basically referring to the wisdom of Esau Edom. So the light there is of course referring to the quote unquote enlightenment, right? Because even Esau talks about that, the era of enlightenment, where Esau's wicked ass wisdom is being pushed, began to be pushed, right? But that's what that's going into. Okay, so you see now that this is now referring to Lucifer, because this is the only passage where Lucifer is mentioned, and it's never mentioned again, and it's mentioned in the Old Testament hundreds of years before the Greek is even invented or the Latin is even invented. And the reason why is because the early translators of the scriptures basically changed the words. Okay, so yeah, let's keep going into it. Historically, the prophet Isaiah wrote this passage as a taunt against the human king of Babylon. The king was boasting about his power, but he would soon fall, right? So now, of course, once again, because the spirit is not dealing with the chart, right? And of course, the Christian and theologians and seminarians that the chart got its information from, they still believe that is going into or referring to the ancient king of Babylon, right, Nebuchadnezzar and his descendants. But we've already gone into that about why it is not, right. But let's keep reading. Early Christian writers, including Origen and Saint Augustine, looked at the pride of the Babylonian king described in Isaiah 14. They interpreted it as a spiritual metaphor for the fall of Satan because Jerome used the Latin word Lucifer. Augustine and other church leaders began conflating the name with Satan, and that's basically how it started, right? Saint Augustine, which is a Catholic, right? Damn demons, okay, began to use the word as a placeholder, as a replacement for Satan, and then eventually Lucifer became known as the fallen angel, and that's where that story originated from, right? Later, this interpretation became widely known in English literature, such as in John Milton's Paradise Lost. However, the original Hebrew text was meant to not describe the king of Babylon, of course. It was meant to describe Esau in this modern day Babylon, okay? Not the devil. Modern translations now reflect this and no longer use the word Lucifer, right? So once again, you see that book, Paradise Lost, right? John Milton's Paradise Lost being a reason, right? A major contributor to the reason why your modern Christian theology, right? Your Christian dogma is so fucked up, right? And because it's the same Paradise Lost that created the whole idea of the rapture doctrine. Now the same Paradise Lost also, is going into Lucifer as well, and that just shows you just how that just shows you, when Isaiah said that, their love for me is taught by the precepts of men. This is what it's going into, right? Rather than getting your understanding. Of course they can't, because once again the spirit is not dealing with them. So it's only natural that you Agitaki plantation Christians get all your doctrines and understanding from the precepts of men. The same with you unbelievers as well. You get your understanding from the precepts of men. And it's like about that beeping for some reason. My my PC is resting up right now. But yeah, it's like about that beeping. But like I was saying, let me go somewhere else that's more quiet. Yeah. But like I was saying, these unbelievers, right? These plantation Christians, you all get your understanding from the precepts of men because the spirit is not dealing with you. So that's basically it right there, man. Once again, Lucifer is not the devil, okay, or the spiritual demon Satan, right? But rather that Isaiah 14 is referring to Esau, Edom, and this modern day America, Babylon the Great. So with that, once again, all praises, honor, and glory unto the Most High, Yahweh Basham, Yahweh Basham, Rakakwa Dash, Wa Abad Babal, and through the spirits of Yakim and Joaquafa edified. Shalom.